Today's episode of the NBA Draft Junkies podcast. I'm your host, James Barlowe. I'm going to break down the performances of Duke Blue Devils, Bennett Stirtz with the Iowa Hawkeyes. We'll talk about Christian Anderson, Texas Tech point guard. I'll get back to Labaron Philon as well. Stay tuned. Big shout out to everybody tuning in, listening to me, watching on YouTube. However you consume this content, I really appreciate it. Here I am again, working, trying to deliver content and not trying to hot take, just giving you my honest opinion on this 2026 NBA draft class. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Starting off with yesterday's game, Duke Blue Devils took on the Texas Longhorn, the Dickie V Classic. A lot of names to look out for. Duke potentially has, at least in my opinion, at least 2 first-round picks. Obviously, Cameron Boozer, who I will talk about in detail here shortly. Big fan of Patrick Ngongba. I think there is some talent there with Sarr. I like Isaiah Evans, Caden Boozer, and we'll see how that goes. But for sure, they have 2 first-round picks, maybe even 3, possibly 4, depending on how the season goes. In particular, Isaiah Evans and Sarr, they have depth at the wing position, which is great if you're a coach, but not necessarily the best thing at times for a prospect, but we'll see how that works out. I'll talk more in depth also about Isaiah Evans. I'm going to get right into Cameron Boozer's performance against Texas. Cameron Boozer, he finished with 15 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. He had 3 turnovers. He shot 3 for 12 from the field, including 0 for 4 from 3 and 9 of 12 from the foul line. Duke ended up winning by 15 against Texas. Cameron Boozer, this was, I guess he's not going to pay the mid-major, low-major tax that a lot of these other guys are playing against. Again, kids don't make the schedule, so, and it seems like everybody's a top 30 pick opening night of college basketball because 9 times out of 10, we're not playing anybody who's going to play in the NBA. And that's not a shade or any knock to any kids because, you play who's in front of you. You want to have your best performance, especially against lower competition. But Duke, they come with it right away. Texas is not ranked, but it is a Power 4 school. It's an SEC school. It's a test. And like I said in the last episode, which aired yesterday, you should probably check it out. I applaud these teams that go out there and play some competition and on opening night because I feel like you're gonna have to play the cupcakes, as they say. But you play quality opponents on opening night. I think it's a better evaluation or a better tool for evaluation for your team going long term. You see what works, what does not work. Everything works when you're physically overpowering some of these smaller schools. So I do give Duke their props in that situation. However, this is mostly about Cameron Boozer. So if you are tuning in to me for the first time, hopefully you do subscribe wherever you get your audio. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on both. I mean, shoot, why not? I'm drop material. I dropped an episode, I believe, last week, and I was highlighting some of the players, especially the top players, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, AJ DeBansa. Talked a little bit about Nate Ament. I think I also mentioned Mike Brown. Just the guys who had scrimmages against quality competition. And a thing that I said about Cameron Boozer, maybe it went unnoticed, I don't really care, but Cameron Boozer, I felt like he shot 7 of 20 against Tennessee, and he struggled from the field, but he had a monster 25 and 23, something like that stat line. And, that's obviously stands out. Great rebounder, great talent. Cameron Boozer, one of the most decorated prep players in the history of basketball, and that's saying a lot because there's been a lot of dudes that have been hooping. But I did have concerns about Cameron Boozer. You can, watch, listen to that podcast, but I felt like in the half court, especially in the paint, in the post, I don't know what his go-to move is. I don't know if he can be an anchor in the future. Again, understanding that he is 18 years old. Guys are young, but he's so physically developed at the high school level that he's been able to be a bully. And he wasn't able to bully Tennessee, at least, into buckets. And it looked like last night against Texas, the same bullying didn't really work. He had a terrible first half. And again, this is not hating. This is just an observation. He probably tell you he had a terrible first half. I believe he was 0 for 7 at one point. And it just looked like he struggled to finish. So on that podcast that I did release last week, I mentioned that I wanted to monitor what it looked like for Cameron Boozer finishing in the paint, finishing layups. There were a lot of miss a layup, grab your own rebounding, and that is a skill in itself. But is that a talent that we are building a franchise player around? So Cameron Boozer missed layups in the first half. I believe for the entire game, he was 1 for 6 on layups. He definitely struggled from the field. I'm not worried about the missed 3-point shots. He took good shots from 3. I mean, that's just gonna happen. He's very skilled in the sense that he can stretch the floor. Like I said, I don't expect him to, I expect him to be able to stretch the floor not only just this season, but just going forward. Like, he's a high IQ player. It's just my concern is, what does it look like in the paint? He might be somebody, and again, it's been one regular season game, but he might be somebody that, at least at this point of his career, you have to scheme him to get open looks on the block and layups, because generating good looks for himself in the half court seems like a struggle. And this is against Tennessee, who doesn't have any front court players that are NBA prospects. No disrespect, shout out to them. This is against Texas, who doesn't have any front court prospects who are going to be in the NBA as well. Shout out to them. So I just have concerns about Cameron Boozer finishing, considering he is 6'9", not a great vertical athlete, and I feel like it's a struggle for him. So there may be, it's early, but there may be a gap between him and Debansa and Darren Peterson as far as your franchise anchoring piece. Maybe Cameron Boozer is somebody you need to pair somebody with, because again, what does it look like? How do we give him the ball and have him create down the stretch, not only at the college level, but really mainly at the NBA level? It's not a knock on Cameron Boozer. Like I said, very talented. He still finds ways to impact the game. I just have questions about what does it look like in the half court when he just can't run through guys, because he doesn't have that same level of vertical explosion that Blake Griffin had when he was able to run through guys. He doesn't have that same length that Giannis has while he's able to run through guys. Cameron Boozer, like I said, he's very talented. If your terrible game is a 15-13 game, you'll absolutely take it. But we're talking about being the number one pick. We're talking about a future franchise player. I just have a few concerns, and if I'm wrong, I'll not necessarily switch up, but I will definitely acknowledge if he's able to improve on what I feel like the things that he needs to improve on. And it's not just him. Darren Peterson has his things that he needs to improve on. Will Darren Peterson be able to balance the scoring, the playmaking, the mid-range jumpers, the three-point shots? Will be able to balance all that? Will AJ Debansa be able to balance his scoring, his three-point attempts, his overall defense impact? This is not a Cam Boozer slander. I'm just talking about Cam Boozer. But I just feel like he plays extremely fast in the half court, and there isn't any pace to what he's trying to do. It's just like, I'm trying to get downhill, I'm trying to run through a guy, and I might get fouled, skill and drawing fouls, but like, no disrespect, but like Nicholas Cody was a 1.7 point per game guy last year. Like, he didn't really play. He gained weight, and it looked like he had answers for Cameron Boozer in the half court. So again, just something that I'm paying attention to going forward. But I think he does have some work to do, and he's a smart kid. I'm sure he will adjust, but I'm just making an honest observation.
Athlete AI is the story of the athlete. And every athlete deserves to have the story told. Under the lights and in the spotlight. This is your moment, your room. Download, capture, create, share. Athlete AI. Your name is Trent.
On on to the other Duke players. Isaiah Evans looks like Isaiah Evans has put on weight. He is a moving shot maker. He is their second best offensive weapon right now. It's going to come down to, will Isaiah Evans do more than just get his shots up? Maybe last night wasn't the best example, but he had 23 points, 1 rebound, and 1 assist. And he's a scorer through and through, but what do you have to offer when your shot is not falling? Dame Sarr, love his first step. I love his shot prep. He shot the ball extremely well for FC Barcelona last year. I was surprised that he chose to go to Duke, but I mean, if he's going to be there starting wing and play 25 to 30 minutes tonight, then it's a good choice. He's somebody who I think can sneak into the first round. He has more talent. I wouldn't say more talent. He can do a little bit more than spot up and defend. Again, those things are very important. I don't know if that's what's going to get him paid in the long run, because his best asset is going to be his defense and his ability to stretch the floor. But he looked good last night. Big fan of Patrick Ngongba. I think Patrick Ngongba was a lottery pick. Very good hands. He's blocking shots now. He's like, I mentioned Derek Queen on the previous podcast. I don't think he's as skilled as Derek Queen, but he's still a very skilled big. But he has a lot of playmaking ability, especially in 5-out. All right, next up, the prospect that I will be covering from the second night of, I guess you could say the second night of opening night, because everybody can't play. On Monday, Bennett Stirtz, the Iowa point guard, transfer from Drake, transfer from Northwest Missouri State. They played Robert Morris last night. Bennett Stirtz looked really, really good. I am a fan of his ability to post up smaller guards. I think that's important because he does have good size at about 6'3", and he should be able to take. You want him to be able to take advantage of smaller guards. I think that talent it's important to have, considering he may not be the best guy in isolation, but if he can back you down with his court vision, with his poise, and break down the defense that way, I think that there's more than one way to skin a cat. Don't come for me, Peter, but I do appreciate that about Bennett Stirtz. He did have a nice play where he created space on a step back dribble when the big was in drop, shot and knocked down the open three. I love his speed on the pitch ahead plays, and he has very good court vision. He understands that when I get a step on a guy, it's not necessarily about me getting to the rim. It's not necessarily about me finding a shot for myself. It's about me causing the defense to move and get uncomfortable and find guys. So he's poised to have a really good year. He played 35 minutes at a 30-point blowout. He's definitely going to have his opportunity. He is the engine to that offense. He's going to be a part of a larger conversation about these point guards that I do have. I think Michael Brown is point guard number 1, but I think that there will be a conversation. I will have this conversation about point guards like Bennett Stirtz, who I mentioned, Christian Anderson, who I'm going to get to, and Labaron Philon. So I think that those guys might be all around the same tier. Bennett Stirtz will be, I believe, 23, almost 23 on draft night. Red flag, if you may. Older point guards. I'm trying to think who's the last older point guard that was drafted very high to have success. And that's not necessarily fair to Bennett Stirtz, because it's not his fault that he's older, but it's not his fault that some of the older guys haven't panned out. But it's just something that I need to do some more research on. But the questions that I have about Bennett Stirtz is whatever you want to say. Can he get to the rim without a screen, and can he get to the rim without the pistol action pitch ahead? And these are important to me, largely depending on where he is drafted. I think he's a very good point guard. I think he's a 8-year veteran at the minimum, backup point guard. I don't want to make a complexion comparison, but you see the success that Colin Gillespie is having in Phoenix. Like, he plays extremely well next to Devin Booker. And maybe that's who Bennett Stirtz is. And those guys, they stick. There's value in that. But it just depends on where I'm drafting at. How high do you think your almost 23-year-old point guard ceiling is if he is a shot creator, but it's still screen reliant. He does have good speed, but in the NBA, if I'm playing against Bennett Stirtz, we're just gonna switch that pick, right? And again, he'll make the right read, but can he make me pay for switching that screen? That is my thinking with Bennett Stirtz. I think Bennett Stirtz is a top 15 player in this draft. If I were doing a mock, which I probably will, which I will do at some point, he'd be in that 15 range. Again, trying to figure out, do I like him more than a Labaron Philon, more than a Christian Anderson, those kind of point guards. Speaking of Christian Anderson, he is here. Christian Anderson grew. They say he's 6'3". I thought he was a legit prospect at 6'1", but being 6'3" is very helpful. He played very well for the German national team this past summer, him and Hans Steinbach. And they played Lindenwood. No disrespect. I'm not talking about Christian Anderson because they played Lindenwood. I'm talking about Christian Anderson because I think he's a legitimate first round pick. He has excellent pace. We know he can shoot the ball very, very well. My favorite thing about Christian Anderson is his shot selection and pick and roll. He shoots jumpers and pick and roll. I mean, you can't play drop on him because he definitely has deep NBA range and he can get to the elbow. But I think he understands the mid-range jumpers that Chris Paul used to take in his prime as a smaller guard or a guard that doesn't have like great explosiveness. Like, I can't get all the way to the rim, but there's this spot in the short corner that I can get to, that if I snake my dribble there, I can get there, and Christian Anderson shoots those shots. He threw a left-handed skip pass in the half court yesterday, zipped it across the court. Like, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm going to tweet about a skip pass, especially a left-handed one. And off the dribble jumpers, he looks good. Christian Anderson is in a great spot for him to boost his draft stock. I am buying it. Shout out to his pops. Christian Anderson is starting to fill out, and he is definitely somebody, like I said, I'm having a point guard conversation right now going forward between Christian Anderson, Bennett Stirtz, and who I'm about to speak on right now, Labaron Philon. Now, Labaron Philon, he tested last year, point guard from Alabama, and he played alongside Mark Sears, who handled the ball a lot, played alongside Grant Nelson, who handled the ball a lot. Those guys are G League, borderline NBA players. Philon decided to come back to school, and he has total command of the offense. He looks like what I think Rajon Rondo would look like if he was born, was that 20 years later? Almost 20 years later. But Labaron Philon, very good playmaker. You can see the jump shot has improved. I think he's going to put up great numbers for Alabama. Again, they play North Dakota State. No disrespect to North Dakota State, but Labaron Philon is putting himself in that point guard conversation. If you ask me today, I think he has the talent to be a top 20 pick. 6'4" guard, good athlete. He's going to compete. I know he gets after it on the defensive end. It's going to come down to him making shots and finishing at the rim. It felt like that wasn't his strong point last year. He only shot 45% at the rim in the half court on 80 attempts. That's something that I would like to see him improve upon. And also just, he shot the ball well and relatively well. I mean, 32% on jumpers, 32% on catch and shoot jumpers. He was 42% unguarded. But now that volume is about to increase because he is the man at Alabama this year. So I definitely want to see more from him. But he's still a very dynamic passer, very good basketball player. And like I said, conversations will be had about Labaron Philon, Bennett Stirtz, and Christian Anderson as a point guard. Well, that wraps up today's episode. It was short and quick. Like I said, I'll be back definitely covering these Friday games. We got North Carolina versus Kansas. And I'll probably drop something Monday morning. Yeah, I'll drop something Monday morning to wrap up the weekend's games. That concludes today's episode. I am James Barlowe. It's the Draft Junkies podcast. I'm out.